guys, welcome to the Sonic Truth. I am Trevor. Over to my left, we have Chris, and over to my right, we have Justin. And today, our guest is Darren Nakonechny from Flock Audio.
Yay!
Thanks so much for having me.
All right.
I'm gonna just get better every single
Yeah,
time.
one take wonder.
One take wonder on that one. Was that good for you? That
Yeah.
sound good?
Yeah, it was dead on.
Hell yeah. All
Yeah.
right, at least one thing.
Get that
is today.
affirmation, dude.
Yeah, that's my affirmation for today. Thank you so much. I am going to sleep well now. So, Darren, how are you doing today?
Good. How about you guys?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Yeah.
Doing good.
We're in a good flow. Gearing up for Turkey Day.
Yeah.
Gobble,
That's
gobble.
right. That's coming up this week, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Not to put a date on the episode, but yes. But yeah, Turkey Day's coming up. We had I don't know about you guys. You ever do like a Friendsgiving or anything like that?
We used to before we ended up moving the company, and then when COVID hit and stuff like that, we don't really have any friends out here. So just slowly getting the lay of the land still now that more stuff is opening up. But yeah, we used to do that years ago before
Man after my heart.
Flock.
Man after your heart. Yeah. No friends.
It's funny because my wife,
just me, myself, and I.
my wife like always is more of a sort of what do you call it? Like extrovert, is it?
Extrovert?
Yeah.
Extrovert, yeah. And I'm an introvert, but I was never like that in my previous career. I always had to deal with people as far as being a manager and taking people out for meetings and dinners and stuff like that. And now, like since starting Flock and stuff, I'm just like, I just like being alone. She's always like, oh, we should go out with these people like we just met. I'm like, no.
Have fun. Babe.
Yeah. I'm like, I deal with enough headaches and have to be on all the time. I don't want to have to do it after hours.
So what were you doing before Flock?
I was actually, I was always doing the music thing in the background. Like I had a recording studio and stuff like that, and played in a band for like 10 years, touring band, and did all that sort of fun stuff. But I was a manager for an international construction company for one of their divisions. So I did that for 8 years, I guess it was. And then like the day I started Flock, I just like, it was like a weird thing. It just all of a sudden clicked, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore for the rest of my life. And that's what actually led me to kind of begin with Flock, where Flock actually started as a recording studio and then moved into becoming a manufacturer.
Oh, wow. I had no idea about that.
It's a big transition.
Yeah, seriously.
It was like, so like the job I had was like pretty sweet. It was a career. It wasn't even really a job. It was a career. And, basically like I had like company truck, company credit card, phone, everything was like paid for, gas, everything. So it was a pretty sweet gig. But again, it was just one of those things I just didn't want to do anymore. I just felt like it was time for a change. And initially when I left the company, it was to start Flock Audio, which was the recording studio, which I'd been doing in the background, but it was to take, the bull by the horns and start it like full time. And I'd started to develop more and more clients. So, felt confident in doing it and becoming self-employed. And throughout that process, as I was growing and I was getting more gear, it was kind of like, well, I need a solution for routing. I refused to use a Patchbay. And I looked around and there's other kind of sort of products out there that could kind of do some of the things I wanted, but nothing that could do what Patch can do. And that's what kind of led me to start working on designing this thing. And initially I thought, I'll continue with the recording studio, Flock Audio, which it was actually called, I branded that company different at the time. So Flock Audio was a recording studio and there was Flock Technologies. And I thought, well, I could do both. I can balance both. And when I announced Patch, it just like everything like took off. And there was no way of like doing the recording studio anymore. I was talking, I can't remember to who the other day, and they were talking about something in Pro Tools, and I said, man, like if I open Pro Tools, I like have to look around and try to remember what the hell I'm doing in there. When we do like some of our videos, I'm like, I'm gonna have to YouTube this because I haven't played in here in like forever. Like you just become a business owner, right? And It's all about, I'm sure Chris can attest to it. It's about new product, new ideas, new concepts and stuff. So it took off, and the recording studio just kind of went into hiatus or onto hiatus.
It's funny when you have, that sort of mindset. You have all these different ideas and things you want to do. And like you think, oh, I'll be safe if I do this. And then all of a sudden something takes off and you're like, oh crap, Like, I,
Yeah.
you know,
And the focus has to shift.
yeah, I had the
Yeah.
pedal company, you know,
Yeah.
was trying to, you know, do the studio thing as well a little bit. And yeah, just,
Hey, I mean,
Yeah.
like, well, you had the band, the pedal company, studio, like, Yeah,
same thing
I mean,
with Darren.
Yeah, same
it was
thing.
you know, it's just, that's one of those things that you sort of hit that wall at one point where you're like, I'm only one person. I got to focus on what's going, you know, where this is, you know, making the most noise. So
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever's
And
gonna
then
be the
as you
most
get
lucrative.
older, then as you get older, you get a family, and then that takes up some of the time, and it just, your time gets thinner and thinner as you get older. So it's best to do it when you're young, and then if you're lucky enough to find what you can essentially, like, you know, feed your family and everything on and make a company out of, you're very fortunate. I was very fortunate that Flock and the Patch series took off, but it wasn't by luck by any means. It was, as Chris would know and whatnot, it's so much work. And people never really understand that. They think that you just kind of put a product out there and it doesn't cost you any money. It doesn't cost you any sleepless nights, and it just takes off. And it's like, oh, well, I could just do that. And it's like, I look a lot older in the past, even just 3 years since we've really grown than I did before. We look at pictures sometimes and I'm like, oh my God. Maybe I should have stayed in construction.
yeah, I know when people are like, they have that sort of intel, I could do that. And by all means, I encourage people, like, go for it, you know, like, yeah, you know, you can, like sometimes if, you know, in the past we used to hire when we first started hiring, and before we hit like our current, you know, workforce of great people, they were, you know, I started on Craigslist, and I got some stories on that, but
Oh God.
and I get these people, they didn't know anything about music, and they would, like, you know, they would think wiring's color coded and all this stuff, and like audio transformers, a lot of these things they don't realize it's not color coded. They, you know, it's whatever wires they have laying around or whatever, you know. And so just try to even just get those basic concepts. So like they, you know, whenever people think they can, you know, have the answers and they can do it better, it's like, you know, you seem like you have some really good ideas, you know, maybe you should have your own company. You should do that, you know. Like, I just encourage it, you know, by all means.
Didn't
If
you tell
wanna-
some guy that too? Like some Craigslist guy be like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. You should start your company with that.
Yeah.
Some,
Like, but yeah, it's like you said, it's many sleepless nights. And what I think is interesting with what you came up with, you would think, I think, especially with Flock, people would think it would be something that's so easy because it's kind of revolutionary in a sense that it's just going to sell itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you still got to get the word out that it exists. You got to let people know, you know, it's
exactly.
And it just doesn't happen, you know?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't just happen. And it's really hard. And you would know this of being a new brand way back in the day, is like getting people to trust in your product and purchase it. And we all know how the audio industry is and how the audio industry consumers are, prosumers. Like, they're very hesitant, right? It's all about the sonic qualities, and they don't want anything to, you know, wreck their signal flow, their sound. And with us, we're kind of like right in the middle of it. We act as like this hub. So it being, you know, sonically transparent and carrying signals and route signals and the flexibility is so important. So we worked really well. I worked really hard in the early days, because I was the company, in really conveying that the whole point of this product was to be a seamless sort of transition into their studio and make everything else easier in terms of their workflow. But that took a lot of time. And what most people, like, we get a lot of customers, and I always encourage it. Customers will come to us and say, hey, like, I have this idea for a product and Flock would be the perfect one to do it. And like, I always encourage it. I always listen, and, you know, I'll make time to be able to hear it, obviously. What they don't understand is the amount of money and time and, you know, the engineering that goes into it. And if it is a good product, you know, can it even be done in the way that they're sort of thinking about it? So we get that. I'm not sure if you guys get something similar. Maybe you guys do, in terms of like, hey, we really want you guys to make this product. And like, there's only so much you can do as a business owner, even as big as you are, and it has to kind of fit your sales demographic on who you're selling to, right? So there's great ideas out there, but it all can't be done, unfortunately. Not in our lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And people think like, oh, aren't you guys going to run out of ideas? Like it's limitless.
Yeah.
It's, you know, even for routing, for anything, it's just limitless. The amount of products you can make, you know, unless I guess if you have no imagination, then, you know, you would
Probably
be at
in the
that
wrong
point
business
anyway,
then.
so.
Yeah, it's crazy that I remember when we first started with Patch, I really didn't have any plans at that time to expand it to the Patch series. It's just that once we saw the success of it, and you know there were customers out there that couldn't make use of the 64.1 or original flagship, and they were saying, "Man, we need this IO count and stuff like that." That's when it kind of led down to be like, okay, we have something here. This is worth looking into and expanding the line. And obviously we have, right, 4 units now, 4 different models. We have the CX model, which is coming out later this year, and that's the booster for it, the adjuster to line level. And then we're working on some other cool things, but we also really jumped into, so obviously we're software controlled, right? But we really took a leap into a direction that we've never ever been, obviously, and that was Patch App DX, the premium graded version. And you have to deal with iLock and making sure it's secure. And then we jumped into the plugin market with the DX Bridge plugin. So we've done a lot of big strides in the last little bit. One of my favorite lines, I think it was from Production Expert, said that we're a small company punching way above our weight. And I never really thought about it that way. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. We're probably pretty risky at times with what we do.
No, it's incredible. The first time we exhibited at NAMM, I don't even think I fully grasped like what the patch was. I didn't like it was, and I think that may be sometimes like new customers or potential they don't understand exactly how it operates. Yeah. And they sort of just, there's this glaze over, I'm sure you experience it all the time where they don't even they know it's cool, but they don't know how to hook it up, or they don't know, and I think you probably see it all the time where there's that aha moment where it clicks that, oh, this is really simple.
Yeah. Well, it's because everybody kind of thinks in a sense of like the old sort of ideology on how a traditional patch bay works, right? And when you bring something completely new to the table and nobody's ever experienced, or there's never been a product in existence like this, whether it works this way or it's controlled in a specific manner, people get that uses the perfect word, glazed over, and kind of like, this is scary territory. And as we get older too, it's like change is scary. But like, I don't know, once they kind of get it, it's like there's no turning back from it. Everyone says, oh, it's cool. It's digitally controlled, it's analog. And then they look at it and it's just like, where do I begin? So that's why we worked really hard as well. And we continue to, as far as resources for, setup resources, our technical support and all that sort of stuff, to really try and help, customers understand how simple it is. Once it's plugged in, it's like, it's foolproof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember 2 years ago when I came over to Chris's studio, he had the racks set up, and I come from the analog world, the TT Patchbay and that mess. And I asked him, like, so how do I go about patching these in? And he's like, well, here, look at this new unit I got. And he was explaining to me how to hook it up, and he shows the interface of it. And I must tell you, Darren, I thank you for designing and developing such a unit, because it changed my game. It changed how I view on how you can patch, and also it expedites your mixing process and recall and everything. So I believe once a consumer understands how it is used, the benefits behind it, it literally is a game changer for engineers. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate hearing that. I mean, that's exactly what we were going for when we initially came up with the concept for it.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, if you're going to spend whatever, high amounts of money on your studio monitors, yeah, that's great. But this is a critical piece of your infrastructure, in your studio. It's like, I'll never go back to a traditional patch bay. And you guys, everyone knows watching this how many pieces of hardware we have at our disposal. So, I mean, it's just really, it's simply a no-brainer. It's so much easier, and there is people have asked me personally, like, do you hear a sonic difference? It's my job to sit there and listen, even through studio monitors, through headphones, critically. I hear zero difference between something that's direct to and from an interface or something that's in the patch. Zero.
Yeah.
Unequivocally.
Well,
So
it's been 7+ years now, and I have never had anybody ever come to us and say they could hear a difference, like ever. And so, I mean, I always find that as a true testament to how hard we work to make sure it was sonically transparent. You made a really good comment there when you were chatting, we were talking, you were mentioning like how it really changes the entire workflow. And, something we come up against, and I'm sure you guys can understand this, is our product is quite expensive. And the reason being, and I try to explain this to customers, which they don't really think about it this way on why it would be expensive, but it plays into the whole sonically transparent portion of it. So if you have a compressor, for instance, we'll say mono in-out compressor, you have more or less a PCB populated with one signal path on that PCB, and that's it. And then you got obviously your chassis, your hardware, maybe some meters, dials and stuff like that. And that's the majority of your
mono
cost.
compressor right here. Yep.
There you go, right? That's a beaut, by the way. But I try to explain to them, really, it's because they think we're just like, they think we're like making hand over fist cash with these things, and we're just charging a lot because it's a new product. It's not the case. If you think about it, like look at an XT, for instance, a 96 by 96, 192 points. Every single channel, every single one of those channels has to be identically populated component-wise, and with the higher grade components to make sure it's sonically transparent. And that obviously drives the cost of a device like that very quickly. Like you would know that, Chris. Like, so if you're talking more in terms of, a straightforward in-out design as far as a product like compressor, EQ or something like that, you're populating one PCB. When you're doing something like an XT or VT or even the patch, there's so many components, and every single signal has to be exactly the same. Like it's to the degree where we actually have, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this, we had to, we engineer and design the product, but there was no ample way or anything commercially available for us to be able to test these things before they go out to customers. So we actually had to then go and engineer and design testing jigs for these. So we have like 4 or 5 of these automated testing jigs, and every single patch system that leaves our shop gets tested on them. And it does everything from crosstalk measurements to, levels to THD, like everything. And until we get it to the point where every channel is as close as possible and like is what we deem passable, they don't go out the door. If, one channel fails or whatever on one card on XD, comes off, it gets pulled, gets inspected, new card goes in, tested again. If it passes, fantastic. But some of these like systems go through like 2-3 tests. Like an XT takes an hour and 30 minutes to go through this automated test. And it's just like, it's crazy. So it's not even like we can just sit there with an audio precision unit and just check each channel. So that's sort of stuff that happens in the background here. But that's also why I feel like we built such a reliable product. We don't really have next to nothing in terms of RMAs from our dealers or customers. So usually if we ever get like an RMA from one of our dealers, one of our partners, we always say, check this. And they're like, oh yeah, it works. I guess the customer just didn't understand how to set it up. Like, which happens even with all the resources we have. So it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it is. User error is, something even we're all capable of. Sometimes I'm here on a desk and it's like, why isn't this working? And, something's not plugged in or something basic, so.
How many times a day that happens when you're working on something like,
oh yeah,
and it's just not like you can't get a connection. Then you look over and it's not even plugged in.
Yeah.
Embarrassing.
Oh man, it's like that show, the IT Crowd. Like, have you ever watched that show before? But like they always like get on the call and they're just like, "Is it plugged in?" And they're just like, "Yes." And they're like, "All right. Well, that was step one." So,
But is the power on?
Plugged in.
Right,
no,
yeah,
the power
is the power
isn't
switch on.
Yeah, the power switch on. Is it plugged in? Is it plugged into the outlet? Is it plugged into the back of the computer?
So at what point in time when you had Flock Studios, did you look at your rack and decide, there has to be something easier. There has to be a solution to patching. I'm assuming it had to have gone through troubleshooting, different types of frustration studios. I remember working in studios where the patch bays were just spaghetti. and always trying to tell the assistant, go to channel 3, multi-track return, this and that. And it would spend literally minutes to get through the cables to find that point. So what point was it that you had your calling where you're like, I need to do something about this?
Yeah, it was, I would say like, so I was doing recording I've been doing it for years prior to Flock. When I really took it on full time and I left my career, it was about 8 to 9 months into it when I was just starting to accumulate more and more gear, and the studio was growing, clientele was growing. And it was at that point that I was, excuse me, I was looking around online and I'm like, there's got to be something. Like, why is there not anything like this? Again, there was semi sort of options, what I would consider in terms of like what I needed as far as a use case, but there was just nothing like it. And so just started kind of playing with ideas and early renders. Literally, I was sketching stuff up on my iPad with the Apple Pencil on just different ideas. Believe it or not, the original, the original patch, the software was completely separate. So it actually had these lighted key encoder buttons on it, and you would actually match up colors to do your different links. And so the original, I've never actually told anybody this, but so this is exclusive to the Sonic Truth. But the original design, the app was something completely separate, and it was never meant to be fully app controlled. And so it actually had these light encoded buttons that you would push several times to get to a specific color, and then you would go to your input and you'd push it till you got to that color, and that created the link. Now, it was a cool idea. It would have been hell to build all these buttons. But it ended up just being to a point where we were looking at the design and we're like, it's just so limited. Where the software, we knew we could pretty much do whatever we wanted with it because it's a GUI. And so we ended up kind of saying, well, you know what, let's just throw the button thing away for now, and we'll hop directly to the software. And then the software went through so many different designs and stuff. I struggled in the early part. I struggled so much with how I was going to lay the software out. I think there's like 4 or 5 different designs of it. And I have a graphic design background. I still do quite a bit of the marketing for Flock, as well as product designs and stuff like that. And I just couldn't figure out how to lay it out. And what it actually came down to, I was chatting to a friend back in the recording studio when I was still running it, and I was starting to kind of design this thing. And he's like, don't you think you're just overthinking it? Just kind of do it like a grid. And I'm like, like, why? And I was just trying to over process and think this thing on how it was going to work. And then the grid thing flipped in my mind. Then I'm like, okay, hardware index on the side, grid in the center, and then we can portion it out and stuff like that. And it just came spilling out. But it was like this dam. It was like this mental dam, and I couldn't get past it. And it was just the simplest thing. Just make a grid. Like, guess I could have launched Excel and looked at it, and that might have popped. But those are the things, like, you get so deep into thought and you just don't think about like how simple it can be. And then that's really like what exploded all the potential and the possibility. And always in my mind since day one, I always wanted it to work on an iPad. And that's where Patch App DX eventually came in, as far as the iOS iPad control, and then the iPhone and stuff like that. So again, that was another big leap where we're like, okay, we're going to try and make it work on an iPad and figure this out in an iPhone. So, but it's cool. So to answer your question, it was right around the sort of 8th, 9th month of really getting busy at the studio and just couldn't find a solution like this.
That's cool.
What year did the patch launch? Because I know you guys you'd had it out a little bit when we co-exhibited with you in 2019. It'd been out for what, a few years then at that point, or?
We had done the announcement early before the product was fully finished. We had a smaller version of it built, and we were doing testing on it. It's actually hanging here on my wall. It's called Patch Junior. It was to conceptualize that it could be done. And meet the audio specifications and whatnot. But our first exhibiting, I think, was 2017 at NAMM. And we had like the very first patch there. It wasn't even exactly of what the commercial product eventually became, which, as you know, like early concepts and mock-ups and stuff, they change. But that was, I think, the first time that we actually showed it. I announced it like the November, and then it was like so last minute. My original plan, this is funny. So, because we were so new to this world, and I had visited NAMM the year prior to that, just to go visit it, see what it was like and stuff like that, because kind of had this thought that I was going to be making this product. And so I kind of wanted to see what that world was like. And then later that year, before the next following January, before the NAMM, obviously a lot happened as far as us designing the product and creating patch, and I kept it quiet and everything. My initial plan was, so I announced it on a website, on our Flock Audio or Flock Technologies at the time website, and it just like blew up. And at first I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be down at NAMM, and I was planning on sneaking in this patch to NAMM and just like kind of carrying it around and and just like having meetings. And then through some discussions, everyone's like, you can't do that. Don't do that. And so it was like, it was December. I was like, okay, whatever, we'll get a booth. So we ended up getting a booth, and I remember it was Christmas, and I was sitting there designing the booth on like this quick website where they quickly spit out your booth and everything, the fabric ones. And I was sitting there, I think it was like the 26th or 27th. I'm sitting there designing it, and I'm just like paying rush fees and everything so we could get it, and hoping it turned out. And then my wife and I, Jess, we flew down to Anaheim, and this was our first exhibiting, and we carted everything on dollies. We pulled dollies. So I think we did that too, Chris. No, Chris, you had the van or whatever when you drove down to the Nashville NAMM. But if you remember, we did something very similar, because I think that was the following year. So that's how we started. Now we have employees. We just fly them out. We're like, make sure it's set up properly, and then we get in later. That's the benefit. But you have to go through the first initial hard parts, right?
I don't know. Sometimes I still show up and the banner's facing the wrong direction, and I'm like,
oh yeah. or the booth's like on? This. It's like half over, and they're like, "What do you think?" And you're like, We're
gonna change. Doesn't matter where the traffic's coming from. We're gonna exhibit to the bathroom. You know?
Yeah. No one will ever work harder. One of the best quotes that like always kind of keeps me somewhat level-headed is, nobody will ever work as hard as yourself for your own company, right? And it's true. You never ever really lose that. I'm sure you can attest to that, Chris.
Yeah, I for the most part, yeah, we get some really great, energized folks here. I'm grateful and lucky, But yeah, it's one of those things where it is, like you said, lots of sleepless nights, sometimes, answering emails at 4 a.m. You wake up, check your email, and just what happens,
Yeah, nothing ever like fully fledges out the first time. Even the first, like when we did eventually launch, I think we, to answer your question also, you asked when it started shipping. I think we started shipping it December 2018. So it was about a year later. And I didn't have a team at all. I had my folks helping build these things in a 2-car garage, and my wife, and we were like building these things because we had taken pre-orders. We didn't do a Kickstarter. We did our own sort of version of a pre-order, which was fantastic because we had a lot of customers buy and trust in us that we were going to deliver, and we weren't all of a sudden going to disappear. This company from up north, nobody ever heard of. But I had subcontracted out the original software for it, and I didn't know, but that subcontractor wasn't actually designed. He subbed it. And so it put a lot of things in perspective, a different conversation for a different day, and it was very troublesome. But part of it was the original patch apps had to have a code. And when a customer would go to our website and key in what their serial number was, it would spit out a code. Well, they didn't get that working, like many things in the early part of it. So you mentioned, waking up at 4 a.m. and answering emails. I actually had to put a universal code on this software, and every time someone would register, it'd be like 2, 3 in the morning. I would have my phone like as high volume as possible, like ding, ding. And I'd have to roll over, copy and paste this code and this like email as if it was automated and send it out. It was the dumbest thing ever, but that's what we had to do, or what I had to do in the early part. So it's funny. I forgot all about that until you mentioned that. So you go through so many changes and growth periods and stuff like that. You forget about that sort of stuff and how hard you worked in the early days.
Or like mechanical designs. Like I knew nothing of the software. I would just draw out like, in Photoshop, 192 millimeter with a little crappily drawn line, like, and now we have a mechanical engineer here, Ryan, who can do like these case designs like this, and they're 3D models, and you spin them around and all this crazy stuff, and, assemble all the parts. And yeah, it's just, you brute force, you got to do whatever to get by. But yeah, speaking of automation, we had to literally just like for the first few years, still up until like a year or two ago, I would literally manually list every item for sale on the website at 8 p.m. Like I would go through like 12 to 14 tabs and just hit them real quick, so they'd all be popping up at different times.
Yeah.
And sometimes by the time I get to the last tab, like the first few would be sold out or whatever, especially during those pandemic eras where, and I already have the emails pouring in before I could finish listing.
Finish posting it.
People mad that they missed out on whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. You forget about those times and like all those things. Like now, like we have a great team behind us now. We have like really, really good staff, and everybody works really well together, and everyone's very cohesive. We have a couple remote workers as well. So once you kind of get that support, you can kind of pull back a little bit from it. But the early days, it's all you. And if you stumble, what's that expression? It takes a lifetime to build a good brand. It takes, just a couple bad days to completely destroy it. And we've seen that with a lot of brands, like both in pro audio and abroad. Your process. So that's right. Because the way AudioScape does it is you guys kind of do like these flash sales. So when you build these products, and your different models, you build X amount of them. And then it's like, once those ones are gone, they're gone, and they have to wait for the next batch.
It was really natural. I wasn't really thinking about dealers or selling. It was just like, it was a very builder centric sort of model where it was just, we built this from Monday to Wednesday. Here it is. We're going to list it for sale. I used to actually sell it when it was like built. It's like, oh, here's the one thing that's built. Let's list it, And then it just evolved into, let's just list a little clump, on Wednesday night and Saturday night. And, from what we built from Monday to Wednesday and from Thursday to Saturday or whatever. And it sort of took off from there, and we just kind of never looked back because that model kind of took off without, us trying that hard. And we never really ever needed dealers. And I think in the beginning, I used to sell on like eBay. Some people say, I remember the eBay days with AudioScape. I used to sell on eBay from doing the pedals. I used the same model I did for the pedals, and I would sell like, it'd be free shipping on the website if you went to the old AudioScape website, which is like a really bad site that I did on like Volusion or something like I use for the software. It was whatever I used for the pedal company back in like 2010. And it just looks so outdated. But anyways, I would send them there and they get free shipping, or they pay like $15 in shipping on eBay. So then we started driving traffic from eBay to our website. And then
so you didn't have all the fees associated with it, obviously, right?
Yeah. And so basically, it was just sort of evolved, and then it just started being one of those things where people saw in other people's studios, just like with the patch, I saw it in the studio, I got to have it, And
no, it's such a cool model. And I think I've told you that before, right? With our product and a brand like us and stuff like that, we benefited from having the dealer network, just because, it's something that they could push and market more for us and more exposure and stuff like that. So, your model, which I've always appreciated and thought it was so cool, and I wish it never would have worked for a product like us or a company like us, unfortunately. But I will say, as we've grown our dealer network, we have such fantastic partners that are dealers, Sweetwater, Vintage King in the US, and all those guys, they do a tremendous amount of work for us, and they do a lot of exposure work for us. And, their sales engineers and their sales reps have their customers, and they say, if you want to do this right, get a Flock audio patch and stuff. So they work really, really well for us in that way. And it's funny, even 7 years down the road, there's lots of guys still, I didn't know this exists. This is crazy.
Same with audio. And you're right though, with having a new innovative product, there has to be someone to shine that exposure light on it, and that makes complete sense, But for us, it was just, people sort of recognize a lot of what we're building. So it's sort of in that regard, they already kind of know what it is they're looking for. But yeah, having somebody that just says, no, don't buy this, $100 patch bay, that's going to degrade your audio signal, drive you insane, and, turn you into a mad scientist before long,
Yeah.
have this,
Yeah. No,
that's important.
patch bays they were always like the salt of the earth for me. Like I like, is that the right term? The salt of the earth? No, that's not the right term. That is not
The bane of your existence, probably.
There we go.
Yes.
Bane of my existence. Yes. No. Anytime I was in a studio, like I just dreaded the patch bay. I was just looking at it. So when Chris introduced me to the Flock Audio, your guys' patch, that thing's a game changer. So I was anytime somebody asks me about patch bays now, I'm always just like, go check out Flock. Go check out Flock. So,
it's funny how we become just Flock. I like it. I guess it's prominent, but people don't even say it the Flock Audio patch or patch series. I mean, that's our marketing or our model names. People are just like Flock patch. Just check the Flock patch.
well, I mean,
get the Flock patch.
well, I'll say Flock Audio. That way they know. Like that way,
I
they
like
know
it
to
either which
search
way.
Flock
I'm not
Audio.
complaining.
Yeah, no, but I mean, a lot of people have that I've talked to on the phone, like had like, because we talk to people that are building studios and everything, and they're just like, well, what would you recommend that you guys don't offer? And I'm always, always telling them about Flock Audio's patch, telling them about Vanguard and Lawton. So I mean, like, we're always trying to just keep everybody in like as a family and recommending everybody to one another. But I think you have probably saved a lot of people a lot of headaches and time while they're in their flow. So
yeah, I just think it's funny that like I said, somebody will spend like 25 to 50 grand on studio monitors sometimes, but then they won't think of something like this, or they're like, oh, that's expensive for a patch bay. It's like, it's not really a patch bay in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
No, it's not like, and it's funny. That's one of the things like marketing wise, I'm always trying to think of sort of different marketing to do. We've been recently doing some funny stuff and because people love memes and everything like that. And then keeping up with our conventional marketing. Obviously our branding is really big, but people don't really understand that it's not a patch bay at all. It's a completely different sort of like analog routing solution. And then with PatchApp DX, like total hardware management with the ability to store everything from your settings, all your AudioScape settings and all your compressors and everything directly in your routing, which has never been done before again. So like marketing wise, like early on, we had to do a lot of marketing towards patch bay replacement, patch bay solution and stuff. And that both kind of, it was a benefit, but it also had its caveat sense of it where it's like, well, or catalyst, I guess, was kind of maybe the better term to use because it was like, well, it's just a patch bay. It's just so expensive. It's just a patch bay. And it's like, if you really think about it, it's actually literally the central nervous system or the hub of your studio. Everything is connected to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and people don't really consider that until you're like walking them through the process. So again, it's just about like helping people understand that this is something completely different than a traditional patch bay. If you want a traditional patch bay and that's like what you want to do, like I personally feel as much as like our solution has been adopted and it's grown and like, we've sold thousands and thousands of these things, which is pretty amazing. But there will always be a place for the traditional patch bay. And I've had this discussion with a couple of the traditional patch bay manufacturers. I said, there's always going to be a place because there's no way you're ever going to buy a patch like our flagship for $500. It's never going to happen. It would be the noisiest piece of junk ever. And even at that, you'd probably be able to bend the chassis and stuff. So it's not the market we're going for. We're going for, the really serious audio engineer who takes their work very seriously and they're looking to streamline their workflow and just get more and more creative with it. And we've heard that from a lot of, some of our bigger, higher caliber guys. They said like, we never ever touched the patch bay. We just didn't want to touch it because stuff would go wrong with it. Or you'd pull one jack and then you put it back and it's never the same. And like now they're like, we're moving stuff around and playing and this is the best work we've ever done. So that's like a really kind of cool kudos for us to hear.
99 or I'd say like 99% of any, user error issues that we are deemed user error that we have with our hardware is Patchbay related.
Yeah.
It's always like so much so that it's like automatic in my mind to just say, if it's in a Patchbay, take it out, run it direct to and from the interface. That's like troubleshooting 101 is like, it's that because.
So you're talking about like support calls, support
Yes,
tickets.
exactly. Yeah. If there's any, like somebody's having an issue, I'm not getting full signal into the compressor or full, and usually it's that. It's just simply whatever, whether it's a bad Patchbay cable or something going on, some weirdness, it's, yeah. I don't
it's
even.
true. It's cabling at the end of the day, right? Like it's just cabling. And like, Chris, back from your band days, how many bad cables could you like have on one tour? Like it would happen all the time. Like cabling is cabling, and really a traditional Patchbay, that's all it is. And that's, I think some of what people don't understand as well is they think of, the Patch series as, well, it's a Patchbay. Why is it so expensive? And it's like, well, again, it is and it isn't, but it takes away a lot of that hassle as far as all the cabling and the bad cables. It was the first year we exhibited with you, Chris. A guy came up to us at NAMM and he was talking to me, and I'll never forget this story. And he said, Patch has changed my life, obviously, like the workflow and everything like that. He's like, but my studio sounds better. And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking, you're happy you bought the product and you're excited about it. I get it. But it's transparent, so it doesn't make your studio sound any better. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, my old Patchbay, I've had it for years, and I didn't notice the slow degradation in audio signal due to oxidization of the patch points. And so his studio was progressively getting worse and worse and worse in audio quality. And he never noticed it because he was a professional that did this every single day. And he didn't notice that, the contacts were wearing out. And even though he put new cables in, it was the internal contacts, right? And when he put patch in, he's like, oh my God, this sounds like completely different. Like the amount of headroom was like so much more and everything like that. And I thought about that after he told me that story. And I'm like, I guess that's true, because if a cable breaks, immediately there's a hum or the signal's lost or whatever. But if you have this slow sort of like process of it just, going downhill, the human condition doesn't really ever notice it, right? Until it gets so bad. And so he told me that. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Never really ever thought about it that way. But yeah, I'll never forget that story.
It's like the frog in the water slowly heating up. That's like
before he jumps
to make
out.
it morbid, but
I'm okay with morbid.
No, but that's an excellent point, Darren. Yeah, I mean, there's so many advantages to using it. I know we're not trying to sound like a commercial for the Patch, but we're just so happy that this exists. And
oh yeah,
it's a game changer, like Trevor was saying.
Especially and you guys use it at NAMM and whatnot, and that's really cool because it allows you guys to be more, work more freely. With showing your gear and people listening to it and stuff like that. So I think you guys are coming up on an upgrade. You're gonna need a VT or an XT now with all the gear you guys have.
Oh yeah, we need all the racks are getting too small. The 4 racks we have there. So
maybe after this upcoming NAMM, because.
Yeah, you guys have been on a trade show circuit.
Well, every time you do a trade show, you always want to bring something new to the table.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, I mean, was it NAMM this past year? You brought, and forgive me because I don't know if it's even out yet or anything like that. But you had it was like a little tiny hub. Yes. That you guys had. So, what is that? Because I didn't get to really go and talk to you about it.
So CX, this was the one that was at NAMM. Essentially what it is so the Patch series is designed as a line level device, line level in, line level out. But as it's, the product line has grown and whatnot, and there's more use case scenarios that people want to use it in different ways, with the really low impedance microphones and, different various keyboards and instruments and stuff like that. And the world, as far as audio, varies so much in technical specifications. We all know this, right? One thing that works with one thing won't work with another without something in the middle. And so CX was originally designed as a process of becoming like a booster for non-line level signals. So signals that were really low and people wanted to use them with the patch, you would have to boost that signal in some way or another. And usually a clean preamp or a dB booster, cloud lifter, something like that, right? And so we had a lot of customers coming to us and saying they wanted to use their patches with all these different sort of setups. And we thought, well, the best way to do it is to create some form of accessory that has the ability to boost, like a preamp, right? And as we were kind of designing this thing and coming up with the concept of it, and we announced it and we were finishing the design and stuff. We had customers come to us and say, well, could CX technically be used in a live setting to, if it's like completely clean, like the patch series is, known to be, it doesn't do any routing or anything, but could it be used just to boost signals in a live setting and stuff? And we said, yeah, technically it can. It has 60 dB of clean boost. And the way it's designed and the way it's set up, it's software operated. And they said, well, like, could we technically have a portion of so you set it up in the patch app. They said, could we have a separate app like that? And we said, well, yeah, you can. So what's cool about CX is it's originally designed to be able to use any type of analog signal with the patch series, but you can also take it and use it to preamp 8 microphones or whatever you want to do to use it with. Some of the interfaces that don't have any gain changes or anything, they're just line level, you can use it with that. So it became kind of a really cool universal accessory that isn't just barred or locked into using it with the patch series. So we got a lot of excitement and interest around it. So pretty excited. It hasn't started shipping yet. It's supposed to start shipping in January is where it's forecasted for right now.
Now you're making me want one.
Yes, seriously.
We have some cool ideas down the road with it as well. It's somewhat of a future-proof design on what it'll have the ability to do. So there might be different generations, different models of it, but the first initial ones are going to do exactly as I described.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is really awesome. So I mean, like you said, this could be used in like a live setting. So I mean, so they can have that, but not have like the bigger units, right?
Yeah,
so
like
they could just use that just out
as
in the road
standalone.
As a standalone. Yeah, that's super cool.
Like you guys could technically use it at like just an idea or like just a way of describing. You could use that NAM and you could have 8 of Derek's microphones all ready to go. So customers can then just like go into a patch or directly into, compressor EQ, whatever, and use it like that. So
can have Derek talking to all 8 microphones.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Have him sitting there talking to all of them. This last year's been no. Edit that out.
We've been so good.
We've been really good. We've been really good.
We've been very professional.
We have been.
This bit. I like how we just sort of go with the flow of the guests on the podcast, and we're not like Darren's very professional, so we've been very professional. This podcast is very nice.
Yep.
Even though you wore your unprofessional shirt.
Yeah, and I do have unprofessional questions.
Fantastic.
So, you're obviously you're being very successful with Flock Audio, and what was the band that you were in when you were touring? I kind of want to know about that because I know about Chris's band and we've all played in bands. What was the band that took up your life for 10 touring years?
The band was called 7-Sided, so like a 7-sided object. We cut 3 records and 1 EP over the course of it, and we were more well known in Canada as far as like our touring and stuff like that. We never did make it down to the States, but we did opening for quite a few big successful Canadian acts. in and around. We would do some tour support for them. So like we wouldn't be on tour with them the entire way through or anything like that. But if they'd come through and hit like one of the major cities that were next to us, we would be one of the openers and stuff like that. So did that, yeah, for 10 years and then realized, well, I don't want to be living off macaroni and cheese out of a box for the rest of my life. And so that's when we, semi sort of parted ways, whatever. But yeah, it was cool. I was endorsed by Gibson, which was awesome. So I got a really good lead on that. So I had quite the collection of guitars. I still have quite a few of them, but I had a lot of them. I sold quite a few of them to start the company up, actually, down the road. But yeah, it was cool. I was a lead vocalist and rhythm guitar for the band.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Very awesome.
Don't ask me to sing now because I'm pretty rusty. Just like Pro Tools. Where is this?
I'm not gonna ask anybody to sing on the podcast.
Just get the keyboard, keyboard shortcuts for Pro Tools. I have that. Yeah.
The keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
On the on your keyboard. I was gonna say the joke. I'll be like, oh, Flock Audio is a Flock Audio existence by Gibson. Or funded by Gibson.
Next week, we're being sued. What the hell?
No, yeah, next week being sued. Yeah. No, that's really cool to hear, though. I mean, that's I've never heard of the band, but I'm sure if
It's
you
not a
guys
bad
have stuff
thing.
out online.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
You can
cool.
look-
I'm gonna look
you
you
can-
up after this, and then
You'll find it.
I'll let you
There's
know my
lots.
thoughts.
We were of the sort of like early sort of modern rock sounding type of hard rock band, I guess. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So what would that be like? Like Breaking Benjamin type stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Chevelle.
Sort of. Yeah, maybe not as quite as heavy. The one album's a little bit heavier than the other of the two most notable ones. The other one we kind of tried to go a little bit more pop with it to a degree, but it was a transition. We'll leave it at that.
I like pop music. All right. So we've talked a lot about all the professional stuff and music stuff. So let's go into the realm of maybe there is and maybe there isn't. So so the first question I'm going to ask you about is ghost. Do you believe in ghosts? And if you do, have you seen one? And if you have, what is that story?
I got excited. I thought we were going to start talking about the Patrick Swayze movie.
I thought so too.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'm a little
Whoopi
disappointed.
Goldberg. Eyebrows or no eyebrows? What do you think?
Pass. So do I believe in the what's it called?
Supernatural?
Yeah, supernatural. Yeah, I think so. I think
Huh?
there's a lot more things in life than we can see with our eyes and stuff like that. And I think that's why there's stuff like deja vu that we really can't explain.
Huh? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Always
There has
think
to be more, right?
Like, if you ever had like a dream and then like a week later it happened and you were just like, what the?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, I always feel
As
like
far
that's
as a
like,
ghost encounter, no. I mean, weird stuff happens, but I like to just think that something knocked something over and I'm not being
Oh.
stalked.
this is a breeze.
I get deja vu a few times, you know?
You ever get Vuja Day?
No.
No.
I get deja vu when my kids call me an idiot.
Oh.
Because then I know it's definitely happened before.
That sounds like a repressed memory.
I get deja vu like that all the time.
Anytime somebody calls me an idiot, I'm like, yeah, I probably deserve it. But never had Vuja Day. Vuja Day is the feeling that none of this has ever happened before.
That's my everyday.
Yeah.
That's what I wake up to.
I think that's a George Carlin joke, actually. Yes. Well, I mean, all right, fine. Goes UFOs and aliens. Have you seen a UFO? And do you believe in aliens? I mean, basically, I feel like the world, like we're all in a spot now where it's just like, yeah, they exist.
I think you'd have to be
confirmed it.
very sheltered. No offense to anybody on the show, to not think that there's more out there and we're the only existence in the entire universe.
No, offense all the way.
Canceled.
I'm gonna look right at the camera and say it. Zoom in, offense all the way.
Flock Audio canceled after Sonic Truth podcast.
No, just that's just on behalf of me. Trevor, you can cancel me all day. Nobody gives a shit.
Experience with it? Yeah, I grew up. So like, I didn't grow up in a city. I grew up on a farm that was like 35 minutes from the closest town, and it was desolate. Like, I left there when I was 18, I think it was. And I went back before we moved to Kelowna, which is where we reside now. I actually took my wife to go see the farm I grew up, because we know who bought the farm, like when my parents sold it and stuff. And I forgot like how quiet it is out there. Like, you could hear a bird land on a branch 6 miles away and the branch breaking or creaking. Like, it was so eerily quiet. And I remember like weird sort of things, like when I was a kid, like there was weird things that would happen and stuff you'd see in the sky back then. And there was no SpaceX. So, we can't use that as an excuse. But yeah, I remember kind of weird things happening. I can't say for sure, like a, point by point story on them, but there was weird things that happened out at that farm.
So no mutilated cows or anything like that.
No, there was dead cows, but I mean,
is it even
we were in the
farm
cattle
if you don't
industry?
have crop circles?
We had crops. We never had crop circles. There was a neighbor. He liked the sauce though. That's the only thing. But he disappeared for like a week and then came walking out of the bush like a week later. And he said the aliens had him and dropped him back off in the bush. But I think he was just sleeping one off.
Sleeping one off for a week.
He was hibernating. He was getting close to winter.
Oh, man.
That's funny.
It is Canada, after all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got that out of the way. So what's the worst advice you've ever given somebody?
Buy a traditional Patchbay?
Yeah.
I don't think you'd give that advice.
That one does come to mind. There's been so much.
There's been so many.
You know what's bad? What's just bad to do? And I don't know if this falls in the advice category. Don't try and like match friends up with friends in terms of dating. That's a disaster. So like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Then you have
like,
to pick sides.
Yeah.
Like if it all goes south.
That for sure. Does that go in the form of advice? Like, I think it'd be great if you went and met so-and-so and they're a great person. And then it just doesn't work out. And you're like, I don't know what to do.
You find out that they're completely like one of your friends is a complete monster. Like when they're not around somebody, you're just like, oh, you're just full of toxicity.
Yeah. So I would say that's a big like no in terms of advice. I would never do that again.
Again, lesson learned.
Yeah. One and that was it.
What, it was just one person you did that to?
One, like two friends together.
Oh, okay. I was like, how many lives have you ruined? Come on, Darren, tell us.
Quite a few. Not dating, like, not just dating situations, but move on.
That'd be a good question to ask somebody. How many lives have you ruined? And how did you do it?
Yeah, leave that one for the next episode.
Taking notes.
I'm gonna take notes for new. I'm gonna have new questions going forward where it's just gonna be some bonkers
This
stuff.
is the podcast that just keeps on giving and giving.
Oh, I think so. What was it? I usually have like a list of a bunch of different like weird stuff. I do like to know if you walked into a room and there was a like if you walk into a room and you had like a theme song that would play every single time you walked into a room and everybody heard it and they can't unhear it, what song would that be? And also, you cannot change the song ever in your life. So if that artist gets canceled or anything like that, you're stuck with the song.
It would be the Stone Cold Steve Austin glass breaking song.
Man, that's great.
That's
great.
That's
one of the best answers.
That is one of the best answers.
Hands
Sometimes
down.
you get like Eye of the Tiger, or somebody's like, or it'll name a Beatles song. I'm like, you're just playing it safe on that one.
No, I want the glass to break, and I want everyone to turn and look, and and I come walking down with 2 beers, climb
With
up
your
on the
leather
table.
jacket?
Yeah, leather vest. Yeah, Climb up
Leather
on, like,
vest.
the
You want
table.
leather. You're going full Stone
Oh, yeah.
Cold.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh man.
I want to climb up on top of the table at the reception if it's a wedding. 2 beers.
Mazel tov. They're like, what? They're like, 'cause Stone Cold said so.
Exactly.
I actually really like that one. God, I'm trying to think of. You guys have any weird questions that you want to ask? No, you
we're
guys
good.
just leave this to me every single
Yeah.
time. I like it. So
Outro.
What? We could do the outro. Oh wait, yeah. Oh wait, yeah. I mean, we're out of time.
Oh yeah, didn't even notice. So much
Oh my
fun.
god!
Didn't even notice.
Look at that. We're having such a good time. So at NAMM, you're gonna be at NAMM, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So if you want to, you can come by the booth and we can do a little couch talk with Chris, myself, whoever else is there. Be good to get you on in person because we're trying to just get some more of one-on-one episodes, not pandemic episodes, where it's all
I know.
remote. But hey, you're an introvert, so this actually works for you.
Yeah, this works. I'm in my cozy little office. No one's breathing on me. Perfect.
All right. One last question. If you weren't doing music, if you weren't in music, not doing music, if you weren't in the music industry, what would you be doing?
Retired on a beach somewhere far away from people.
But what would you do to get to be retired?
Sell Flock audio.
That's good.
That's a good one.
I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I don't remember what I had for dinner last night. That's how quick my brain works. What would I be doing other than Flock audio or music? I would probably try to do something fairly simple and straightforward. I think if I wasn't to do something as an entrepreneur, but what that would be, I'm afraid you stumped me on this one. I don't know.
Farmer.
Fisherman.
Fisherman.
No, I don't know. I'd probably be something still in technology of some sort.
Yeah, I could see that.
I
Yeah.
can see that too.
Something design wise. That's where I love to do. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, the design, the graphics that Flock has, they're amazing. I know you've mentioned other companies are like, hey, can I steal your graphics and your marketing? Like, no,
like
come
other
up with your
companies will
own.
like ask me like, hey, like we notice you do this, whatever. Are you cool if we do it? I'm like, no. Like you can. Like I can't stop you, but not
It's
really.
not okay if you ask. It just,
Yeah.
Yeah, you just do, and then you just do it, and then ask for forgiveness.
I see similar stuff out there that like people do some sort of stuff like us, and I get it. Like marketing a 1U rack in like form of like marketing campaign or whatever is tough versus like a beautiful like microphone or something that you can do all the angles. You got this like nitty gritty old black rack and somewhere like mounted. It's tough to market, so you get creative.
yeah.
Well, we won't be taking any of it, so don't worry. One, I don't know graphic design as well as you do, but Michael does. Maybe, I don't know. No, we won't take anything. We got it. So, all right. Well, it's obvious that you've watched a lot of these episodes, every single one. You're a big fan. We know this and everything. So why don't you do our famous sign off?
You're gonna have to coach me on that one.
Perfect.
That's it. That's good.
We don't have one.
We don't have one. We like to just put people on the spot because at the end, everybody's just like, "What the fuck?" Like,
I'm like, research, pause, watch.
yeah. Am I supposed to do something before getting on here?
What did Derek do when we did that?
He was just like, "What?"